Hey guys, Kongai here, and today we're doing probably one of my favorite series on the channel, and that is the top 10, top 7, top 8, whatever we're doing. Just depends how many tanks there are. And the reason I like this series so much is because there's so much learning involved, and I feel like these videos are the most helpful for players because they learn little things about tanks, and it's the quickest way to learn little things about tanks. And that's how, in my opinion, I got pretty decent at this game, was just learning little things about, well, the game. Which were like, this tank has this amount of gun depression, this tank has this amount of alpha, this tank has this much penetration. And then you use that. Even if it's just one tank, you learn one tank at a time. In this case, we're going to be learning about 8. Well, technically 9. And we're looking at the best crew trainers in World of Tanks Mercenaries. And how this is going to work is we're going to be looking at crew XP first. They're going to be rated on crew XP bonus. If there is a tie, then we'll go to regular XP. Okay, so that's how we're going to be looking at this. And starting off at number 8 is the Jackal M4A4 FL10. And it earns itself 20% experience and 20% crew experience, which is pretty nice. That's 40% extra experience you are getting per game in this tank, and that is all going to your crews. This thing can train both British crews and French crews. It is a dual crew trainer, so that's really nice. You get one tank, and suddenly you have a crew trainer for 2 nations, which is pretty phenomenal. It also makes 60% extra credits, which is also really good. In the game in the background, we actually made, I think, 150,000 credits this game, which is great. This gun is very similar to the AMX Chaffee, pretty much identical. Alright, near identical gun handling, actually identical alpha, almost identical penetration values, but this thing has 6 degrees of gun depression and only 9 degrees of gun elevation, which comes into play a lot in this thing. It also goes 48 and has a horsepower per ton of 15. So it does get around, not too fast, but fast enough. It makes it feel like a medium tank. Next up is the Legion 59 Patton. It makes itself 7 on the list because it has 20% crew XP and 35% regular XP. It's got the same crew XP bonus as the Jackal, though it does have 15% more on its regular experience, hence why it is 7th on this list. And this tank can train both Chinese crews and American crews because it is the hull of a Type 59 and the turret of an M48 Patton. And this is my first game you see in the background, and I was pleasantly surprised by this thing. The rate of fire is decent, 8 rounds per minute, which is about average for a medium tank at tier 8. 212 pen, which is really good for a tier 8. Let's see. What else does it have? Top speed of 50 kilometers an hour. Reverse speed of 20, which is quite average. Power to weight of 14, not that good. But once you get going, 15 is nothing to shy about. And this thing says it has 9 degrees of gun depression, but it actually has 7.4 over the front and 9 over the sides. You only get your 9 degrees of gun depression if you're side on to the enemy. So keep that in mind if you pick this thing up. Another thing you want to keep in mind is the fact that this has a 0% credit multiplier, meaning this does not make any extra credits in game. So yeah, if you're looking for money, this is not the one you want to get. Also, hold your horses before you buy this thing by itself, because there is another Chinese vehicle that is on this list, which in my opinion is just better than this thing, other than the fact that this thing can train American crews as well. I don't think that's enough to warrant picking one of these up. Rolling right along, we are at number 6, which features another dual trainer, and that, of course, is the T-34-88. It makes 20% crew XP, just like the last two, but it has 50% multiplier for its regular experience. So yet again, it goes up by 15% over the last one. It also has an extra little number you see there next to the 50%, and that is 2 bonus percent to the free XP. So most tanks have a 5%, pretty much all tanks actually, premium, tech tree, artillery, everything has about a 5% free XP conversion rate. So that means if you get 1,000 experience in game, 50 of that goes towards free XP. This thing has a 7%, giving it 2% bonus. So that's pretty interesting. It's not huge, but it's something, and it's there, and I decided I would mention it. This tank, also, it is a dual trainer. It trains both Russians and Germans, which is another cool thing right there, and it's, as we said, pretty good, making, 70% experience, adding up both the crew experience and the regular experience. So that's really nice. It also has a blistering rate of fire on this 88mm. It fires. It's got a reload time of 6.3 stock. Okay, with no equipment, no food, not what, a 75% crew. That's really, really good. 2095 DPM at tier 6 with no equipment is phenomenal. That's a 6.3 seconds reload time, so 9.5 rounds per minute. An 88 caliber gun, 220 alpha, but it only has 132 pen on its standard and 171 on its premium, and that can kind of make you suffer when you're bottom tier. This thing also has 7 degrees of gun depression and 22 degrees of gun elevation, which is actually pretty good for a Russian tank. And yeah, that will get you out of a lot of situations. Next on the list is probably my favorite premium light tank. Actually, definitely my favorite premium light tank in this game. And my second favorite light tank overall, the LTTB, just barely is ahead on this thing in my eyes. But this thing has pretty much the same exact gun on the Jackal, which we talked about, number 8 in this list, though this thing has 6 rounds instead, and it's a light tank. It's not a very fast light tank, though. It only goes 56 kilometers an hour, but that really doesn't hinder the tank. Also, it's a tier 7 with 600 health, and a lot of people complained about that, like, oh, it needs a buff, it has no health, and they nerfed it. No, this tank has never, ever, ever, ever been nerfed. When this tank was first introduced into the game, it could fight tier 10 tanks, and it had scout matchmaking as well. So you were a tier 6 with 600 health. You could not fight, well, you could fight your own tier, but you could not fight tier 4s. You would never be top tier. You were always finding yourself in at least a tier 7 game and up to a tier 10 game with 600 health. Yeah, and then they got rid of scout matchmaking, and they realized if we're going to get rid of scout matchmaking, we have to move this up to tier 7, because if it stays at tier 6, it's going to be fighting tier 4s, and the maximum tier it's going to fight is tier 8, even though we balance this around fighting up to tier 10. So, what did they do? They moved it up to tier 7, removed scout matchmaking, meaning it can be top tier now at tier 7. Remember, the lowest tier it could possibly be wasn't a tier 7 game before, and yeah, they called it a day, and that's perfectly fine. They literally, if anything, it was a buff, because this thing went from having to fight tier 10s now to being able to fight tier 4s. So, yeah. Let's get into talking about the real numbers. The reason why everyone is here. The F224 AMX Chaffee has a 20% crew bonus, just like all the other tanks on this list so far, and a 60% bonus to its regular experience. Ooh, that's really good. That's really good on this thing. Also, this tank can train both American and French crews, and it has a horsepower per ton of nearly 29. So this thing is pretty fast indeed. Its alpha is 135 and its penetration 144, which is fine on a light tank in my opinion. 202 pen on its premium APCR, and this thing has 0 credit multiplier. It has a 0% credit multiplier and 390 view range, which is actually fine at tier 7. So you can do some things with optics and a pretty decent crew. And of course, seeing how this is a crew trainer, that should not be an issue whatsoever. Number 4 on the list is yet another Chinese medium tank and another variant of the Type 59. This time it is the King Dragon Type 59, and it has 30% crew XP. This is the first one to have over 20% crew XP, 30% extra crew XP, and 15% regular experience. Now technically, if you add those up, they're not as high as some of the other ones, but remember, I'm counting crew XP first, and then if there's a tie, then we move on to regular XP. So that is why this one finds itself 4th on the list. This thing also has a 57% experience bonus. Actually, technically, it's a 57.5, which is something you don't hear about. So you have this little, literally 0.5% extra than what than what's advertised. So that's interesting. That will get you a few extra credits per game. But nothing huge, nothing special. But what does make this special is it has a 105mm gun with 200mm of penetration and 390 alpha. Yes, this thing hits like a truck, and it hits hard. It has APCR, which flies at a speed of 1,460 meters per second. Woo! This thing flies, and when it hits, it hits. And it has 7 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of gun elevation. And the mobility, it goes 56 in a straight line and has nearly 15 horsepower per ton, which is fast enough, or should I say strong enough, to get it about to 56 when you really need it to on flat ground. And has a DPM of 1775, which isn't that good at tier 8, but the alpha makes up for it. And so, of course, does the turret. The turret is phenomenal. 200mm of turret front, which is the same as what the old T-54 used to have, which was considered good at tier 9, and this thing, of course, is at tier 8. And this is one of my favorite tier 8 mediums to play because the alpha and the credit multiplier and the XP multiplier and the crew XP multiplier, it's a really good all-rounder, and you can't go wrong with it in my opinion. And I do recommend this one over the Legion 59 for sure. At number 3, the Americans are getting a standalone, and it is the Vengeance T25 with 50% crew XP and 15% regular XP. This tank also has a 50% bonus to silver as well. So you're going to be, just like the Type 59, making good experience. In fact, even more experience, even more crew experience. And you're also going to be making money in this thing as well. It also has 10 degrees of beautiful, beautiful gun depression. And its DPM is 1846. Not the greatest, but still not that bad, all things considered. It's just slightly more than the Type 59, the King Dragon, should I say. It has 192 millimeters of penetration on its standard rounds, standard AP rounds, 243 on its premium, and 240 alpha damage, which is a pretty much Joe average for medium tanks at tier 8, really. 10 degrees of gun depression. Did I mention that? I don't know, but I'm mentioning it again if I didn't. 20 degrees of gun elevation, very average for an American. That's about what they all get. And 55 km/h top speed. Only at 14 horsepower per ton, though. It might take a little while to get there, but it has insane ground resistances. So it actually, even though it has 14 horsepower per ton, it makes up for that in, well, its tracks. Its tracks are amazing, and you can get places pretty quickly. At number 2, we have the best bang for your buck in this game. Change my mind. It's the Hull Hound, and this thing has a 50% experience boost to its crews, and 20% experience boost in general, and a 40% credit boost. The credit boost is amazing. I mean, it's not huge. It's one of the lower ones at tier 8. 40% isn't that big, but it's not zero like some of the other crew trainers, and 40 is still significant. Plus, this thing is insanely cheap at 7,800 gold, and if you get it around Halloween, it will be 30% off or free if you choose. And this thing, in my opinion, is the best, not my favorite, but the best tier 8 light tank. It's not super quick, but it is pretty fast. It goes at 72 kilometers an hour. 72.4 actually, if you want to be exact, but its power to weight is only 21.6. Most light tanks at this tier are reaching past even 30 horsepower per ton, so this thing does not get up and go that quickly, though it pretty much performs like a medium tank with really good DPM, good rate of fire, really good terrain resistances, 182 penetration on its standard rounds, 250 on its premium rounds, and it has 240 alpha, and it has HEP rounds for its HE, which have 201 millimeters of penetration with 320 alpha damage. And this tank has the same rate of fire as a 140 and a 62A. If you are firing your HEP rounds, you have the same DPM as a tier 10 Soviet medium tank. Yeah, that's pretty insane. So I carry plenty of HEP shells when I play this thing. Now for an honorable mention, this tank does not have any crew XP bonuses, though it does have an insanely high regular experience bonus of 78%. This thing will make you so much experience and so much crew experience, because that does go towards crew experience. But remember, we're only counting crew experience in this list, which is why this only makes the honorable mention, which is why I decided I needed to have it here, you know. It also makes 57% extra credits as well, going along with the 78% extra experience, which is really, really good. This thing has almost 2,000 damage per minute with 110 millimeters of penetration on a preferential tier 5. This is a preferential tier 5 with 110 millimeters of penetration, which is phenomenal. And if you choose to shoot your premium rounds, you now have 180 millimeters of penetration with 75 alpha damage, but you're reloading every 2 seconds. Yeah. This thing goes 28 kilometers an hour and it has a 9 horsepower per ton, not very fast, 6 degrees of gun depression, 12 elevation, nothing special there, 350 view range, nothing special there. This thing, you just get close and you click right bumper, right trigger, and you just unload into people as fast as you can, and then you just make experience over and over and over again. We are finally at number 1, and number 1 on the list may surprise you. It is a tier 2. A tier 2. Okay. Is the Panzerkampfwagen 38 Hotchkiss 735F. But we are going to be calling it the Micro Mouse, because that is what it was called a long time ago, or at least by the community they used to call it the Micro Mouse. I don't know if they still do, but I'm going to bring it back if they don't. This is the Micro Mouse. Why do they call it that? Because at tier 2, this is pretty much a mouse, nothing can pen it. Well, Nothing used to be able to pen it, just like the old mouse. And now everything can, because there's a lot of stat patterns, seal clubbers, people shooting premium rounds, tanks that don't need premium rounds can now pen this, so on and so forth. And yeah, so on and so forth. Yeah, I just said that. Well, I said it again. So what does this thing make? It makes 50% crew experience, just like the last couple of tanks, and 70% regular experience. If you put those together, that's 120% bonus experience to its crews. That's really, really good, and that's why this is at #1 on the list. Plus, the games you play are usually fast, unless you're in a situation like me, where you're trying to clutch versus pretty much the entire enemy team by yourself, and then the games go a little bit longer. Credit factor, it doesn't have a credit factor. You don't make extra credits in this, so keep that in mind. Plus, you're fighting new players, and it's not that fun. But this is not an opinion-based ranking system. This is strictly on numbers, and that's why this is here. Otherwise, I do not recommend you get this tank, because it will be mean to lower tier people. Don't do it, don't be mean. And also, you'll probably get bored rather quickly in this thing, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, guys, that's the video. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you did, slap that like button, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you learned anything new, if this was helpful for you. Plus, there is a package in the store right now that you can buy. Coincidentally, this has nothing to do with my video, but it came out at the same time as my video, and it's called Training Day, and it's 14,550 gold, and it comes with every single tank mentioned in this video, minus the Micro Mouse and the Churchill 3. So it has the Jackal, it has the Legion, it has the T-34-88, it has the AMX Chaffee, it has the King Dragon, the Vengeance, and the Hull Hound. All 7 of those tanks for just 14,550 gold. And I picked this thing up myself because I had all of these tanks except for the Jackal, and it cost me about a little less than 2,000 gold, actually, to get myself a new Tier 7 premium tank so that I could make this video for you guys. Well, that's it. I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you did, slap that like button, comment, subscribe. Make sure you go check out Space Bandit and GotADingy's YouTubes, links in the description below. And let me know which of these crew trainers are your favorites, if you have any of them, and do you use them. And I'll see you guys all later. Take care, everyone, and peace out.